Hooray, hooray. Well, everybody, welcome to Supermom Sessions. And today we have with us Joan Haney, and she is amazing. So Joan is a mother and a grandmother. She's done, oh my gosh, so many cool things in her life. Like trained horses, trick riding horses, all kinds of stuff. Her husband was in the military, retired police. She's all about experiences with her kids, which is what I love, because I also am that type of a mom where it's all about just like the way that we make memories together with them and the things we can do to make that happen. And also just being curious ourselves. And I love how like you've had all these different things that you have learned to do in your life so far, and you're still like just trying new things and venturing into new business ventures. And so I absolutely love that. Joan is such an inspiration to me. We met through the ClickFunnels community. Actually, we met at the airport, and I heard her talking to somebody behind me. We're all like getting our bags before we go to the hotel to this conference, and I hear somebody talking behind me about wanting to teach moms how to prepare for disasters and feel prepared and feel confident. And I was like, oh my gosh, a fellow prepper. Wait a second. And usually this is a space that is predominantly male. Like a lot of men love preparing and having that feeling of security for their families to make their family safe, and that's like the man thing. And I was so excited that I'm like, oh my gosh, here's a mom teaching other moms how to prepare. And so I turned around and I was like, okay, I overheard this, I must know you. Hello, I'm Brenda. And so anyways, we met and we've been friends ever since, and I've loved getting to know Joan. That's like a whole year ago that we met. And so yeah, I've absolutely loved. And so she's been getting her business going. I've been getting my business going. We've both been cheering her on. We've been cheering each other on throughout this whole process. Like we're both each other's biggest fans. And so I can't wait for now Joan to share some of her expertise with you guys that I've been getting to have all these conversations personally, but I can't be selfish, can't keep this to myself. So I'm going to share Joan with all of you guys. And so she can share a little bit about herself. So Joan, I'm so glad you're here.
Aloha. Thank you for having me on. This is phenomenal. I'm just so stoked, you guys. You don't know.
I love it. All right. So I gave a little brief, summary of you, but now I want you to really kind of introduce yourself to everybody so they can get to know you better. Tell us how many kids you have, what their ages are now, what your grandkids' ages are, and just kind of about yourself, like where you've lived, where you live now. And so just kind of like the metamorphosis in a quick summary, but start with you. Like, where did you grow up? And tell us about Joan.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so I was born in 1960 back in North Carolina. So that's where the hey y'all and the twang comes from. And my dad was a commercial fisherman. So at 6, I was threading needles. By 8, I was lining net. We lived on the water, just had a blast. By the time I was by the time I was 9, I was hunting on the water and whatnot with Dad and Grandpa. And then my grandparents owned, both of them had farms. And my mom's side of the family, that farm had been in the family for 200 years. They actually had horses in the smokehouse during the Civil War. That's the history. So I grew up picking watermelons, cantaloupes. One uncle had 3 farmhouses. And so I was out in my pink coat playing with the pigs, just mortified my grandma. But anyway, so I grew up in the country. I don't know if it's a redneck, but I am. And tomboy, that's what I am, tomboy. Rode dirt bikes, was a horse nut, and didn't get my first horse till I was 14 because we didn't have a ton of money, and kept him at my uncle's. And anyway, that was the experience. So she was 6 months old, wasn't halter broke. I got the worst rope burn I ever had in my life when I took her out and round pen worked her because I didn't know to let go. It's going, and I'm getting worse and worse. Anyway, that's kind of the stuff I did as a kid. And then I always wanted to come west. I'm from North Carolina. I always wanted to come out west, and the only person in my family that ever did that. So I ended up going to Meredith Minor. It's a horsemanship college. I graduated in 78 on Thursday and flew to college on Friday. Was a versatility major. I rode English and Western. And I was just like, okay, I'm going toward the Olympics. This is my goal, and just did that. And things, I ended up not going to Olympics at that point, never did to this point either. And it was just super cool. One thing led to another. And that's one of the things that I wanted to really point out today, because I have an advantage of being older. My husband teases me. I'm 3 years older than him. Like, you'd think I was old as dinosaur poo, listen to him. But I'm only 3 years older, but he loves to tease me. So anyway, we've been married 39 years. And I always wanted to go out west. And I ended up, for you guys that have been divorced, been there, done it twice. By the time I was 24, I'd been married twice, no kids. And I felt inspired to go out west. And that's one of the big things I want to encourage you ladies to do, you busy moms to do. If you feel inspired to do something, if that still small voice, your third eye, whatever, the universe, God, Holy Ghost, whatever's telling you do something, listen to that. I've experienced the most joy in my life when I've followed those promptings. And okay, so picture this. A girl 24 going out west Idaho, didn't know nobody, gets connected with a county extension office with 3 women. The next day are driving 4 hours away in western Idaho. I go with these women, get hired on the spot at a ranch, fly home, come back. 3 days later, I meet my husband swimming in a hot pump, a quarter mile from the ranch. Now, you telling me that was the first big, oh, okay, I'm being rewarded for listening to this still small voice. And we got married 4 months later. So people ask me how you meet your husband. I said, swimming in a hot pump. And people would drive an hour from Boise to go there. So it's super cool. He's a horse nut. He was a survivalist. Back then, you didn't have a prepping or a bug out retreat or anything. It was like, you're going to have a cabin in the mountains. They didn't call it a bug out thing then, but he was hardcore survivalist. I mean, he was in the military. He had hiked Mount Rainier, did all this stuff and hunted. And so Scott is the one that really, I learned a lot of stuff as a kid, farming, gardening, raising animals, butchering, all that. But Scott was the one that started teaching me all the stuff with firearms, a whole lot more with handguns and whatnot. And anyway, he was in the military then, ends up retires from the military. We moved all over the place, including Germany. And okay, this is my second time, guys, of being inspired. I was taking dressage lessons 3 times a week. My goal was to
Explain to everybody what dressage is.
Okay,
I'm a horse person, but not everybody knows what this is.
Okay, so dressage, you ever see the people wear the tall hats in the Olympics and they're riding around on this fancy saddle and they got a black suit with tails and stuff on, and they're doing all this advanced work with their horses, the extension, collection, and it's just gorgeous. And sometimes they do freestyle. They ride to music. Well, I love music. And so I wanted to do freestyle. And so I'm riding 3 times a week. My goal was to get a job as a working student with Bessie Steiner in the US. She coached the German Olympic dressage team. So, but she had married an American and lived in Illinois. And so my goal was to do that. Well, it happened again. That still small voice told me that it was time to have another child. And I'm thinking, I get morning sickness. I can't ride. And I was 2.5 years into riding 3 times a week. I was riding 4th level horse, which is higher up. And but we always knew, it was so funny. Every time that it was time after the first one, we have 4 children, ages 30 to 38. And we had 2 boys, 2 girls. My husband's a combat vet. He was in the Gulf War when we were stationed in Germany. He volunteered. I told him I would kill him if he does that again. Don't do that again. And then both our sons are combat vets too. One was in Iraq and one was in Afghanistan. So, and they both have PTSD, and that's another thing too. I want to do riding programs with combat vets. But anyway, so every time it was time for us to have a baby, we'd go put kids in the car, and then it's like there's a child missing. And Scott and I look at each other, and I was pregnant next month. I get pregnant real easy. So anyway, so we're in Germany, and I'm getting this prompt, and Joan, you need to have, and it's like, if I do that, I can't finish this. I don't want to do that. But I listened to it and I did it. And I'm going to tell you something, guys. All right, let me show you something. If I hadn't have done this, I wouldn't have this experience last night. I have 4 grandchildren this is my daughter, Sarah, that I had 30 years ago, got pregnant with in Germany, had the baby there. This is her 1-year-old. That's what I'm talking about. You listen to that still small voice. It's
Yeah.
going to help you make decisions in your life, your business. It'll inspire you to know what to do with that child that's having problems that you want to, side the head or whatever, or you want to pull your hair out. It'll
Yeah.
just help you so much.
Yes. Yeah. Like
So
the
yeah,
answers we need are in the challenges we face with our kids,
right, right.
with that journey that we go through with them. It gives us what the thing is that we're asking. Yeah.
Right, right. And you'll do stuff with your children, and it's not your idea. It's coming from a higher power. When you ask for that, you'll be told, "Oh, do this." And it's like, "Oh, that's cool." And you go do it, and it works out. It works out super cool. And when we got back to the US, we had Sarah there. We got back to the US and we bought our first horse farm in Kentucky. Scott was stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and I trained horses there. And we started homeschooling. I did that for 9 years, so that was kind of cool too. And then Scott got out of the military in Colorado Springs, and then he got a job. He'd always wanted to be a police officer. He used to watch cops, and he'd critique them like crazy. They can't do that. That's not right. Wanted to be a cop, and that's like, no, I wasn't crazy about my husband being a cop. Anyway, that's another story. Ask me about sometime. But it was really, really cool. And we ended up buying. We bought 20 acres out in the boonies, 70 miles from Spokane, and that's where Scott was a police officer at. And we ended up
You went from Kentucky then to Washington.
So it was Western Washington, where Scott's from. Then we went to Fort Hood, Texas. Then we went to Germany, then Kentucky, then Colorado Springs, then Pasco, Washington. And as soon as he could get hired on with Spokane PD, we moved up here. And so we moved all around. We had gardens and farms everywhere. So we were even raising rabbits in Germany, for self-reliance and prepping, and sprouting grains and doing all this stuff. We've done aquaponics. We've done all kinds of stuff. So we've had chance to have tremendous failures, but great successes in all different climates and stuff. So that's been a learning.
That's something it's like for the people you're teaching how to do this prepping and this preparedness and just think,
right.
It's like you've lived in all these different areas. So
right.
I know, okay, you're in this environment. Here's how you can do it there. And I've lived in this environment. Here's how you can do it there. And so you've experienced all of this and you've set up your systems that can be applied no matter where they are. That's the coolest thing.
Exactly. And talking about systems, when I have watched you talking about systems, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, these girls are so lucky to be in this group, because it's the systems that saves you time, gives you your time back, helps you to have time that you can spend with your children and make those memories. That's what's super important, is that you're not all in this entrepreneur mode all the time. You're mom, and with the systems, you can balance all of that. And you can be wife, mom, like me, grandma, and that's so important. Those memories that you make, the thing of it is, your kids, like I was telling Brenda the other day, the memories, the things your kids are going to remember, it's not that so much that you took them to Disneyland. It's a time you were hugging them, physically touching them, wrestling with them, doing arts and crafts with them. Yeah, taking them to sports and stuff like that. But I got to share this one thing with you. My dad always wrestled with us girls. I'm the oldest, and I have one's 2 years younger and one 4 years younger. Then my baby brother's 11 years younger. And Dad it was so crazy. If you lost when he was wrestling with you, then he'd draw with a magic marker, circle around your belly button. That was the worst thing on the planet. You had lost when that happened. So I wrestled when Scott wrestled in high school. My husband wrestled in high school. So we always wrestled with our kids, and we did horsey on the back and everything. And I remember one time, I do crazy stuff, this is talking about doing memories. When we were stationed in Kentucky, one time I thought, okay, I'm going to do something that the kids will really like. So I teased my hair. Like I got the 80s hairdo today, but I had like a fro. I put on bright red lipstick, this white t-shirt, and tons of makeup. I looked like a darn clown. And we were in a split level, and the kids were all downstairs in the playroom. And I came downstairs and I said, I'm Hulk Hogan's mama and I'm going to kick your butt. And my son that was 9 at the time, his eyes were like this for like 10 seconds. And then they realized, oh, it's mom.
Yeah.
And my brothers, so stuff like that. They remember that. I remember that. You know, that's what I want to encourage you as a grandma. I'm 63, you guys. It is do them things with your kids because they will love you. They it's so important. And Brenda, she takes time. She does a lot of stuff with her children and takes time off and does stuff. And she sets an awesome example for you guys. So I highly recommend following her systems, following her example. You know, most of you are her age, which is awesome, you know, and to have this, I didn't have systems, you know, I was just pulling it out of air and doing the best I can, you know. And being in the military, anybody else that's on here that's in the military, you're traveling a lot of times you don't have that support system,
right?
So like Brenda with her systems, you know, having a chef, having a house manager, having someone that's lined up to help you with cleaning the house, taking care of the pets, taking care of the children, so you can do stuff. And so you have date night. That's another thing. Every Friday night, date night. If you can't do it on Friday, once a week, do date night. I'm gonna tell you, being somebody that was divorced twice by the time I was 24, date night, you keep dating until you die. I'm not kidding you. That's extremely important for your relationship. Trust me. And you do, you know, I saw this thing not too long ago, and it was somebody talking to a man, and he says, and you guys, it was on Instagram, you guys may have seen it, and he says, men, he's talking to men, and he tells them, you think when you married her it's done. It's not. You keep courting, you keep dating her. And ladies, same thing. You keep courting, you keep dating, you keep drawing lipstick hearts on the mirror. I did that. I think we went like 6 months and that didn't get wiped off. And then when it did, I redid it. You know, put stuff in their underwear when they're traveling. You know, do stuff with them. Send them sexy texts. You know, I mean, get real sexy with them and stuff like that. And just have fun. Enjoy life. And don't worry about what other people think so much. Be you. And if you're an entrepreneur and you're going to attract people that are just like you. So I'm going to probably attract crazy people, you know, but people that like to have fun, they love life, and they love their family. And that's the most important thing.
Yeah. I love that. That's wonderful advice. And because I think, like, before I had my own kids, so I'm number 2 of 6 kids, and we're all spread out. My youngest sibling is 15 years younger than me. And so I was like mini mom. And so by the time I was in college, anytime I'm around little kids, I just knew how to speak their language because I had been, you know, handling all my younger siblings all this whole time. And so I was like that, you know, like 20-year-old person that's just really good with kids and really fun with them. And then later, as I had my own kids in my 30s, then I would always think back to like, okay, what's like the fun aunt thing? What would a fun aunt do here? So sometimes as moms, we feel so drained and so exhausted where we're just like, okay, like it's like, you know, Groundhog Day, the movie where you're like on repeat all the time. You're like going out to a restaurant and doing the same thing over. And I started to think to myself, oh, wait a second, stop being mom, be fun aunt. What would the fun aunt do in this situation? Like she would be like, you know, playing with her food or drawing silly pictures on the menu or whatever. Right. So I like would like kind of like have to change my mode into being like, oh wait, like what's the fun version of this to get out of whatever feeling of being the mom that you feel. And the same thing within your marriage, just like you're saying, like you're always dating, and how like sometimes I'll have to think back to like, okay, wait a second, when I first met my husband when we were in our 20s, and it was like going to dinner and you know, like playing, and it was mysterious, and like I remember being at a restaurant and we were like throwing pieces of food on the other person's plate just to make them laugh, and you know, stuff like that, like goofy stuff. But then you go out to dinner now and it's just like, how was your week? It was good. How was yours? You know, like it's like, no, come on, like let's like throw a piece of food on their plate and like make funny faces at them and do silly stuff, you know, like go back to that like fun, curious state. And it's truly where you start to connect again, both with your kids and with your spouse. And so, yeah, sometimes I have to like remove myself from like, okay, stop being current Brenda, go back and like, what was like the fun Brenda that plays with other people's kids, or what was like the fun Brenda that, you know, whenever I was first meeting Mike, and what was the things we used to do and the way we used to talk to each other, and, you know, like whistling at each other and silly stuff like that. And so I have to remind myself, and this is like a reminder for everybody that's listening, is like, what were those things that you did, those goofy things? Like, how can you do more of that now and keep doing it, right? Like, you're 63
Right.
years old and you're still doing those silly little things when you
Right.
first met in that hot pond. And so I
Right.
love that. That's such wonderful advice. And the same with the kids. It's like all the silly things. Like, we were making dinner, and this is something my husband taught me, is like, you know, whenever you're checking to see if the spaghetti's done, you throw it at the wall and see if it sticks. Like, we never did that in my family, but I guess that was like a thing. And so I remember like we were in college together, and he was like making spaghetti, threw it at the wall. I thought it was the funniest thing. And so we're making spaghetti with the kids, and we take a couple of the noodles out to test them and see if they're done. You throw them at the ceiling, you throw them at the wall and see if they stick. They thought that was the funniest thing. And so now every single time we make spaghetti, they got to throw it on the ceiling and see if it sticks. And then now we just kind of like leave them up there just because it's hilarious, because it's like 2 weeks, this dried up spaghetti still hanging from your ceiling. And they like, Mom, the spaghetti's still up there. Like, they think it's the funniest thing. And these are the things exactly like you're saying, like they will remember that. Like all these grand trips. The kids and I were just talking about one of our trips that we took, and I was having to recount what we did on the trip. Like, they don't even remember. But I put so much work into planning that trip and making sure we all had such a good time and made all these memories, and like, yes, of course that's for me, but they now don't even remember that. But they're going to remember the spaghetti sticking to the ceiling. So it's
Right.
like, we don't have to make these big grandiose plans to make memories with our kids. We don't
Right.
have to say like, I need to free up my schedule so I can go do this epic adventure. No, like, just throw spaghetti at the ceiling and call it good.
I agree. I agree 100%. We played badminton a lot, and because we lived on the water, I had 28 cousins. So everybody came to our house to go swimming and fishing and skiing and all that. You know, we in the evening, you know, a lot of people, that was one thing I didn't do that Scott did. We didn't go camping. We had the perfect camping spot. Dad did put a tent up, but we lived right there. We could take the canoe out, you know, fish right from the pier and crab and all that kind of stuff, and, you know, do weenie roast and stuff with the cousins. That was another thing is, you know, I grew up with all my cousins, but because we're in the military, my children didn't grow up with their cousins because we were living all over Timbuktu. And so that's an important thing. Reunions, family
Yeah.
reunions, you know, that's important to do. It's so easy right now, you know, on Sundays or sometime once a month, every weekend, you know, do Zooms with your family members, especially if you live a long ways away, so that they can stay connected to, you know, the aunts, uncles, the cousins and whatnot while they're still around. I mean, I've lost a lot of aunts and uncles, you know, and that's another thing too, is one of the things like, so I did the horse farm thing, you know, trained horses off and on for 30 years, gave lessons wherever we were at. And and then when Scott got out of the military and we moved up here, Spokane area, we ended up buying a big 34-acre dairy, a newer dairy, and we gutted it, made a horse facility. We had 28 head of horses. We did therapeutic riding, 5-day overnight summer camps with kids. I absolutely loved that. That was so much fun. And we were homeschooling, so we had homeschool groups come out. And we had a patriotic bareback bridleless drill team that performed in the Northwest. So I did my dressage training. We were very accurate, buddy, in our figure eights, and it was all kids. It was a lot of fun. That was awesome. And then I
Yeah, so it's
kept
like you never know where this thing that you're
is going to
learning,
lead.
and then later you use it here. Yeah.
Yeah. And get this. Okay. So I'm doing that. And we've been doing that 9 years at that location. And I cracked 2 ribs in a training accident. So that led me to get a massage myself. Well, 6 years later, when the economy started going bad, my kids are growing up, leaving home. And it's a big responsibility when you're doing overnight camps with children. You got up to 21 kids and they're there from Monday morning till Friday night. And you're doing horse shows and arts and crafts and riding twice a day and all that kind of stuff, and teaching anatomy and doing field trips and everything. It was huge. And we sold the farm. And I had a real nice horse trailer and real nice truck, sold it, put myself in a massage school. Who would have ever thought I would have been a massage therapist, you know? And then right into training, I fell in love with Hawaiian Lomi Lomi. So before I even graduated, I was taking certification courses, which I didn't get the credits, but you know, I learned. And so I ended up becoming a Hawaiian Lomi Lomi massage instructor. And one of the coolest things that I did with that, and I'm getting me goosebumps here, they call it chicken skin in Hawaii, was teaching couples massage, how to massage each other's shoulders, seated pillow massage. He did that for bachelorette parties, mother-daughter activity. Touch your kids, I'm not kidding. Rub their backs and stuff. They sit on a sofa, on a pillow in front of the sofa, and you just massage. And there's like 5 strokes that you do. You know,
Yeah.
the aloha stroke, the come here, honey stroke. You know, so it depends on whether it's children or sweetheart. You know, and so I taught that. I did that, and then from that, it led to women's sexual health. I was meeting all these women that either had gone through menopause or had chemo, and they couldn't be intimate anymore. You know, it was just it was too painful. And so I found out a cure for that a roundabout way. So I mean, who would have thought I'd done that? And then along the way, when we were in Kentucky, we got an Angora goat to eat our weeds, our creeping Charlie, which out west they sell them as a plant. We used to pick them stinking things in North Carolina and throw it away. Anyway, and so we had this Angora goat. Nobody would come and shear one goat. So I'm sitting on a stool. It took me 2 hours the first time was trimming this Angora goat. Well, I saved all the mohair. And when we got stationed at Colorado Springs, a lady taught me how to spin designer yarn. And I got so good at it that the lady in California couldn't spin enough. So I started spinning and selling it. Well, I ended up teaching that all over Northwest and at Deer Park Home Link and all this stuff. So, you know, if you would have told me I'd be spinning, you know, I have ADD. I don't sit still for nothing. You know, I couldn't even do piano lessons. My mom was a master pianist, and it used to drive her nuts because I play by ear. And she took lessons for 6 years and can't play by ear at all, you know. But anyway, so all these wonderful experiences happen, you know, and I want to make sure you ladies know, whenever a door closes, that next door that opens is going to be even more phenomenal. And I don't care how low you feel or how bad things look, just know all these things are making you stronger. A diamond, how does it become a diamond? Heat and pressure. How do we become diamonds? How do we fulfill our earthly mission? How do we be the awesome kick butt moms? If I say ASS, my mom will wash my mouth out with soap even if I said don't. So sometimes I just say, I tell people, yeah, I'm in the kick butt modern moms group. but anyway, you know, all these things, and like I love to joke a whole lot. So when there's a light at the end of the tunnel, it's not necessarily a train coming at you. You know, most of the time it's going to be something really good. And these trials make us stronger. And it's like Alex Hormozy said, you want to have all these no's, get 100 of them out of the way. You know, you're just growing. You're just becoming, you're fulfilling your mission. You know, and another thing too is like, I remember hearing someone say one time, you know, sometimes like you'll think your flaws, having ADD. I have ADD. Having ADD is a fault or a flaw. You know, I have a speech problem. I was always, you know, when I was in high school, believe it or not, I walked looking down the ground and say nothing to nobody. And it took me a long time to get over being that shy, which I'm not shy now, but it's, you know, all these things are for your own good. They're going to make you a better person. And sometimes it makes you a better person. You don't just become that better person, but if you listen to that still small voice, that's the main thing that I want to share. Nothing else. You guys, even if you're feeling goosebumps or chicken skin, you got it. So I'm getting goosebumps big time. So, and in Hawaiian culture, that's called mana. Your mana increases and you become more in tune to things and you listen to it more. And the more you act on it, don't not listen on to it. Lord have mercy, for like 5 years, I kept being told, teach people how to prep, teach people how to prep. And I thought, what? You know, I thought, no, I'm doing massage and get the, okay, so COVID hits, just destroys my massage business, especially being in Washington State. It was horrible. We were shut down for 3 months. So things start like a year or so later and things start looking better. I'm supposed to go to Florida. Miracles had happened. I'm going to teach 30 women 2 weekends in a row and I'm going to gross $24,000. COVID hit. So that wasn't what God wanted me to do. I wasn't supposed to do that. I'm supposed to be helping prepper moms. I'm supposed to teach them how to be able to get their food storage and do all this stuff so that their families are prepared. So they're mentally prepared. It's a mind game, all this stuff, and that you have all your things and it's not complicated. It's easy to do. We have car insurance. We have homeowners insurance. Do we have family insurance? This is your family insurance,
Mm.
So, I mean, just follow Brenda. Do what she says. She's phenomenal at this. Follow her system. If you're not jumping on board, jump on board, because what she's advising you to do, she's spot on. I wish I had somebody like Brenda, and I'm not blowing smoke up your strong. I'm telling you the truth, sweetheart. To have that advice to help me, it would have made things easier, and seeing that and less pain. So we want things easier and less pain. So anyway, I just want to say God bless you. God bless all the women that are on here that are listening to this. And I just, it's almost like I want to say, I just hope everybody has a very Merry Christmas, that you had an awesome Thanksgiving. Hug your loved ones. Always make sure you hug your loved ones. I lost a really good friend this past week, and my husband lost a cousin that's my age, exact age. You just never know. Take care of yourself. It's so important. And I know Brenda's into that. She's into, being healthy and take care of yourself. Take time to exercise. It's so important. There's 800 people in my graduating class in North Carolina. And I bet you we've lost at least 100. And most of them we've lost this past year. It's just, we lost a whole lot more this past year. Of course, time's going by. But I mean, it's simple things, heart disease, diabetes. I'm really into health a lot, stuff like that. So you got to eat good, and exercise and take care of yourself so you can be around. One of the best gifts you can give your children is to be able to be around and spend time with your grandchildren. Serious. And you won't realize that until the time comes. But to be able to spend time with your grandchildren, that means, for me, being able to spend time with my grandparents is a cherished memory, super important. So anyway, that's the words of wisdom from an older lady.
Yeah. And that is a conversation that we've had with our own parents, and my in-laws is saying like, hey, we are concerned about your health or whatever, lack of things, like the things that you want to do, but you're not quite doing yet. And it's like, we just want you to be around when our kids graduate high school. We want you to be there to see them go through these milestones. And so as soon as it's like, we say it that way, because sometimes I think whenever people get to be in their 70s and 80s and, they get to be certain ages and they just kind of feel like, like now I'm just sitting back and enjoying everybody else. I'm on spectator mode. Right. And I'm like, no, you are still super involved. Like what you're doing is still mattering to this other generation. It's not just your kids and whatever advice you gave them. And okay, now they're on their own. Like the value you give to your grandkids, great grandkids, like the people that have their great grandkids and getting to be in their lives and pass on their knowledge to that generation. I was raised by my grandmother. And so the troubled relationship I had with my own mother, it didn't affect me because I had this amazing grandmother who lived right next door, and I would just spend all the time over at her house. And so she raised me. She taught me like social graces and baking pies and, how to garden and all these things that now I use in my adult life. And so if she hadn't taken care of herself, she lived to be 97. And so if she hadn't taken care of herself, she would not have been there to guide me as a little kid, as a teenager, and then even when I was in college, I would come home to visit her, like my parents they were still raising all the younger kids. And so they were like, okay, cool. There's one of them out of the house. But I would come home and visit my grandmother, even if my parents weren't excited for me to stop by. So, that was really important in my life. And so I think that's wonderful advice, is like for the generation that you're in, it's like, everything you're doing still really super matters maybe not for your kids. They're grown, they're making their own choices, they have their own families, but their kids, the grandkids, are getting so much value out of your generation and the perspective that you have. Because it's like, I grew up before there was all these computers and devices and things like that, but my kids are growing up just devices galore, internet, everything. Like, I remember when there was no internet and you actually had to like go to the library and research stuff. And you grew up where like it was absolutely, and so I think just having, my generation has like the bridge between these two worlds where like we existed for a while without these things, and then now we're existing with them. And kids have never known a time without that. Well, then the grandparents really like share with them, like, yeah, this is like another way you can do it. Before all that stuff came along, this is how we did things. And so I think having those two perspectives connected without the middle person is so valuable. And so this is exactly why I love that Joan is in this community. And I love all the grandmothers who are in the Kick-Ass Modern Moms community, because they do give such good perspective to everybody who's like in the trenches raising their kids right now. And it's like the things that they share with the things that they're doing with their grandkids. And it really starts to give us like this zoomed out, bigger picture where like sometimes we're in it, right? Like my 4-year-old reminds me daily about all the things I still have to learn, like how I still have to learn how to be a parent because of the challenges he presents me with. That's what toddlers do. They grow us. And so then just hearing the perspective of a grandparent, it's like, okay, zoom out, right? Like this is a blip in time, and these things that I'm doing, before I know it, I'm going to be out of this. And then I'm going to be the grandparent experiencing this all over again. Or even like just zoom out and realize like, you don't take yourself too seriously, right? Like as moms, sometimes we feel like the choices we make, we're going to ruin our kids, right? Like, oh my gosh, my kid's going to need therapy for whatever I'm doing right now. And it's like, one, therapy is good for everybody, no matter what. And two is, we don't have to worry so much about this choice, like having this huge traumatic effect on our kids' lives. Like, it's this blip in time. There's so many things shaping them. Zoom out is like the perspective you got, is like zoom out and just look at it from farther away, and everything actually gets clearer.
Right. I totally agree. That's awesome. Yeah.
So your superpower now, you've had so many superpowers over the years, of all these different things that you've done, which like grand scheme of things, your superpower is your curiosity and your willingness to learn and try new things. I think that's so cool. But your superpower right now that you're helping moms with is learning how to prepare. The Prepper Mom is your business. So my husband and I, our family, we are preppers. And so we have food storage. We have considerations for like, what if, there was like here in Arizona, we get these big monsoon storms in summer, and sometimes it just knocks out the electricity. And there was like last year, part of town was out of power for like 48 hours. And so there's steps you can take so that to make sure that like everything in your freezer, your fridge isn't going to go bad and you're not going to have any food. And I know for a little while during the pandemic, all the grocery stores nearby were out of stuff. And there was actually a couple of them that were just full on closed. So like, they're like, we can't restock. So we're just closing. We're not even going to be open. And so there's a couple grocery stores that were closed. And so there's things like this that it doesn't even have to be this giant disaster. It's not like we have to go to war with anybody. It's not like there has to be this tsunami that hits the side of our country. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be something like the internet goes out, and think of all the stores that use the internet for you to even be able to purchase your groceries, right? Like if the internet went out and there was like a glitch in the matrix, like the internet goes out, you're not gonna be able to get your groceries because the grocery stores need the internet to process all the payments, and you're not gonna be able to get gas for your car and all these different things. And I don't want to scare people, but I just want you to feel confident knowing that there's things you can put in place so that no matter what happens, you can just keep doing your thing, and be prepared for these type of circumstances. And so this is what you're teaching moms now is for the people. And there's so many families, I think, that have grown up feeling very dependent on, especially now with the internet, you always feel like it's always going to be there. Like the idea of the internet not being there for my kids, they're like, wait, what? Or like the idea of not being able to call someone. Like we were watching Christmas vacation, or no, yeah, Christmas vacation. And Chevy Chase gets stuck in the attic, right? And my son goes, well, why would, too bad he didn't take his phone with him. He could have just called somebody and told him to open the door, to open the attic door. And I was like, no, they didn't have cell phones. He couldn't have taken his phone with him if he wanted to. That wasn't a thing. You just have to wait till somebody notices, like, yeah. And so, so I think like, as we move in the generations, this is something that we need to learn this so that we can teach our kids this, is being self-sufficient, being self-reliant, being able to prepare, because we take it for granted that we're always going to have phone service. We're always going to have the internet. All these things are always going to be in place, but it is really easy for these things to get knocked out. And so that's where, even just like 24 hours, that really puts a monkey wrench in people's schedule. So having things in place where you're like, it's cool, we got these things prepared for. So tell us, introduction, like for somebody who's never ever given thought to this before, what is it and how can they get started?
Okay, so the best thing you can do is you need to have a plan. If you don't have a plan, you're planning to fail. So first thing to do is have a plan. And that's, we have courses, we do concierge program, all this kind of stuff where we can help you on different levels, whatever you need. The main thing is to have a plan, emergency preparedness plan for your family. First thing you need to do is find out what's the potential hazards for your area. Do that. And that's one of the things we do in the course. And we're actually, sometimes we just give that away for free. That's just awesome thing to know. So, you know, what's the most likely scenario disaster? I mean, for some people, the car breaking down, that's it. You know, like one of my really, really good friends, for her, it like Brenda was saying, it doesn't have to be an epidemic. It doesn't have to be World War III. It doesn't have to be zombies are coming, anything like that. You know, like, for her family, they prepared. I mean, they were preppers big time, prepared and all this kind of stuff. And the wife, she was working, the husband's working, both have good jobs. She gets extremely sick, has to quit her job. So now they're down to one income. And then her husband, not too long after that, got laid off of an excellent job. So they go from 2 incomes to 0 income. But because they had a year's supply of food storage, they had extra money saved away. They lived on the little farm. They had all kinds of livestock. They had bought all their grain in advance. They had food storage, everything. That it was a year before he got a new job, before he could get a new job. It wasn't that big of a deal to them. And they even had a child that his work had not done some paperwork right with medical, and they had extremely high medical bill. I don't know if it's surgery or high, I don't remember that, but it was a lot of money, but they were able to make it because of that. So having a plan, preparing, following that plan, have an evacuation plan, have a plan in place for all different things. And I actually, if you want, Brenda, I'll share this with the group, our secrets to getting your grab and go portfolio. So that has all your emergency papers in it, you know, your wills, any contracts, shot records, all the important paperwork. Have that in your planner, and also have it as a backup on thumb drive too. That's just the very beginning. But if you plan and then you drill too, because I know of a family, they all had 72-hour kits. We're in Northeast Washington state. We have lots of fires. This family was all prepared. Everybody had 72-hour kits. They're hanging up inside their garage right by the car, and the fire was coming, then it wasn't coming, then it's coming, the wind strain, then it's not. You know, finally they have to leave. They had never drilled. They jump in the car, take off. Guess what they left hanging in their garage? The 72-hour kit. So you need to drill and practice this. Our military, our law enforcement, they all practice stuff. And by doing that, it becomes muscle memory. So that's extremely important to practice the thing. You know how at school, we homeschooled and our kids went to public school, but in private school, they teach just kids to stop, drop, and roll. Well, that's a drill. That's getting in their head. So if they catch on fire, they know to do that. And then it gets to, like, if there's an earthquake, you know, places they get underneath the desk, they drill. If our children are doing that, don't you think we need to be doing it, and on a bigger level? Take all your stuff and go somewhere. You need to have a plan, place to go. And like you were talking about, the second you said like your children were talking about, the person going upstairs in the attic and could call a cell phone. First thing I thought is he needed to have his GMRS radio clipped to his pants, and because we use emergency communications too. But that's just the very beginning. So, there's all kinds of stuff we can help you with. Scott and I actually have been teaching this to our community for free for over 18 years. We probably taught a couple thousand people through our church and the community. We've organized huge retreats and events, prepper events. So being prepared brings peace of mind. That's the thing. And nowadays, and we don't run around. There's a lot of preppers or survivalists that, oh, the sky is falling, or we're going to be attacked tomorrow, and you're going to die, and you need gas. We don't teach that. If it's your time to go, you're going to slip on a flipping banana peel. That being said, we do promote prepping. God's told me to do this. He's closed every door for me doing other stuff. So, and my mission, and I truly believe this, the rest of my life is to help people to get healthy food storage, know how to replenish it. If you want to learn how to butcher a rabbit or pig or that, we teach you that too. You want to learn security, firearm safety, Scott teaches that too. All these things that bring peace of mind and help you to be more well-rounded as an individual. It makes a huge difference when okay, nobody's getting down that driveway without us knowing it. That makes me, as a woman, when my husband was working nights or in the military, gone 6 weeks at a time, knowing I was protected and knew what to do in advance and could protect myself and my children, that's priceless right there. Feel like I should say amen, close meet, and say a prayer, So it's all these things are important, and we want you to have, all you ladies, we want you to have peace of mind. Enjoy life. This is a beautiful journey. Enjoy it. Stop and smell the roses. Dead serious. And this, I'm talking to myself, because here I am, ADD, and I'm, we're running a horse farm, we're doing summer camps, we're doing birthday parties, we're doing guided trail rides, we've got a bareback bridleless team, and I'm homeschooling all of that at one time. It can be done, but you got to take time, and you really need to take time to spend with your husbands, because they start feeling like they're left out. And from my massage business, what I found, the divorce rate was high, and the women, they didn't take time to date. And to be frank, they weren't having sex often enough. Serious. I've been married, we've been married 39 years. You got to keep dating, girlfriends, read between the lines, you know what I mean? And take care of yourself, and if you start, like, this is a thing that some of you ladies are going to experience. As you get older, your hormones are going to change. You're not going to have as much energy unless you eat right. And she's talking about having Cindy Ray on. She has Cindy Ray on. You girls listen to her too. She is phenomenal. I know her really well. She lives down in Spokane. Eat good, you guys. Get your blood work done. Go to a naturopath and get your blood work done, because they test for things regular doctors do not test for. I went undiagnosed with thyroid for 6 months. Go back to my naturopath, just like that, found out what was wrong.
Yes. And I know this is tangent, but I know there's a lot of women in this community who struggled with fertility, just like I did. And I found a lot of my herbalism and my, how to eat for your hormones and all these things. I found that through that obstacle. And so now the way that I raise my kids and the way we eat, we do not take any medications, not even over-the-counter medications, because nature has its own apothecary that is so much better and works so much better with our body. And I know there's lots of you women in this community who have come to know me, and you'll text me and be like, tell me what I need to go find at Whole Foods or Sprouts or whatever. Cause I'm like, have done the research on all these things. And there's some moms that are in this community who are also really, really good at that, who then I also ask these questions to and get recipes from. And so it's like, I would not have found that aspect of my own wellness journey if it wasn't from these other obstacles and struggles that I had, and like having miscarriages and struggling to get pregnant. I thought I would have my kids like all close together and like closer in ages, but there's more gaps than I expected. But that was the path that was just, I was supposed to take, because I was supposed to learn something through this process so that I could share it with other people and myself too. It's like, I I was paddle boarding with a group of people, and there was a couple of the people who were talking about how it's like, oh yeah, you'll find this now that you're in your 40s. They're telling me like, yeah, you'll learn this too, Brenda, that once you're in your 40s, you just keep rapidly declining, like every 6 months is a year. And I was like, I don't know about that. Like, I've never been healthier in my whole life. Even when I was a teenager, the problems I had then, I don't even have any of that stuff anymore. And so I feel like I am at like the best. Like, I feel like I keep getting better and better. And it's all what goes in my mind and what goes in my body. What I feed myself makes such a big difference in just how I can exist in this body and in this spirit with everybody. And so it really is. And so you are correct. I can't wait to have Cindy on here and have her share some of that stuff. There's some other moms who are really good at that stuff also, that I can't wait to bring them on. But yeah, I mean, all of this, it all goes together, right? I mean, it's just so funny that you could think that like, this is the thing that I want like people to think is like, you founded this business, the Prepper Mom, but then you also do like massage therapy and this spiritual aspect. And so I think as us as humans, we start to see people for like, oh, prepper, right? Prepper gets a bad rap because people think that's a certain type of a person. But it's like, I am a very spiritual person that like I got my crystals on my desk, and I got my Bible over here. And I also have all my essential oils and all this kind of stuff. And then I also prepare. And so we take all these nuggets from all these different aspects. And so I when people just start categorizing other people based on the things that they do and the things they're interested in, I'm like, nope, drop it. Let's all just be people. Let's all just be people and learn from each other. Because there's so many aspects of these things that we can use. You don't have to take all of it, just take some of it and add that to your pot, you know? And so like over the years, we have learned, you know, preparing, like you're talking about, like having your food stores and even knowing like having water storage, because like, if there was a pipe that burst up here where I live a year ago, there was a sinkhole in Tucson, Arizona. You're like, what is like the desert? It's so dry. How can you have a sinkhole? Well, because there's all these underground rivers and all the rains came and it just made it so soft. There's these sinkholes, and then it made like the pipe sink and the pipe burst. And so there was my relatives like were in this neighborhood where they were out of water for a whole week. So they were coming over here and filling jugs and going back over to their house, and like the grocery store down the street was out of jugs, so everybody's just having to go nearby and like fill up water jugs. Well, this is something where I was just like, well, we got a water cistern, we got filters of whatever. If like the water went out here, we're good for a good while. And so it just gives peace of mind. So I feel like as moms, sometimes we get so worried about all these things coming at us, right? Like we're just trying to do our best job as we can as a mom, and then all these things keep coming at us in the news from other people that you're talking to. Oh, did you hear about this? Oh my gosh, this terrible thing, right? And you're always just worried like, oh, how am I going to be able to still parent and do my family? Well, then once you have these things in place, you're like, well, I don't care because I got it covered. Like I'll be
good to go.
Yeah. And so it just makes you just so much more confident to just keep doing the things you're doing. Like it doesn't slow you down. And so this is where like we were prepared, food, water, all this wise, but we had these wildfires here that were like right on the mountain that I'm looking out my window right now. And this whole mountain range that I'm looking at was completely on fire in 2020. And there was ash covering our pool in the backyard. Like we couldn't go outside. It was so smoky. We had to turn the AC off so it wouldn't keep pulling all the smoke inside and the ash and everything. And so like something like that we were on an evacuation notice. And so there's different levels of it depending on where you live. And so we were on the like almost ready to evacuate stage. And so all of you who live here in Tucson, you remember these fires. And if you lived up in the foothills, you were on this level where you might have to evacuate. And so it wasn't like okay, go, like you don't have time to think. We had some time to prepare in case we were told to go. And so we started going around the house and like you're talking about, and like the documents and doing that stuff. So we had time to come up with this thing that we hadn't given thought to before and be like, okay, well, we need to get all these documents. All, you know, where's this, where's that? Okay, the kids, telling them like how much they can pack and how much they can take. Okay. And so just considering like, if our house is going to be in a fire zone, what are we taking? How are we packing it? And just considering these things. And then I went on my phone and just started making a notepad of like, you know what, this is probably a good thing. Because you know me, systems lady, I'm like, if this is a process we're going to go through once, we might as well make a shortcut. So if we ever have to go through it again, it's already handled. And so I went through it and I just started making a list in my notepad on my phone of like, in case of fire, in case of emergency, here's the stuff we need to grab. And I started making a list. And then we realized like, well, then that should probably all be in one spot. That's easy to grab. And so then from that, we created family policies and family systems to help us if it ever happened again. But one of the most important aspects of that, like you're saying, is like kids, right? They need the structure. They need to know what the schedule is. And like they go to school and they come to rely on this certain structure, and then they can feel at ease because they know what to expect. And so it's not like things getting thrown at them. Well, through this whole process of my husband and I all figuring out what we needed to grab, we realized like the kids were like, oh, what's happening? Is our house going to catch on fire? Is everything good? You know, they were so worried. And so even though we're calm and we're like, okay, like it's not that big of a deal. We got time. We're getting things in order. But the kids we weren't sharing it with them. And so they weren't getting the benefit of having part of that process. And so then my poor son, who would already wake up with nightmares of like fires in the wall, like he's always been like kind of afraid of lightning and fire and stuff like that. It's just something he's always been scared of. And so now it's like his worst nightmare coming true, right? And so he was freaking out. And so he's like taking all his stuffed animals and putting them in a trash bag and putting it in the car. He's terrified. And we realized like, oh, wait, buddy, no, here, let's sit down and let's talk about this. And so we actually sat and we're like, listen, this is what's happening. We pulled up the YouTube videos that the Forest Service was publishing about like the latest on what was going on and what to expect and how fire behaves and what the public needs to know. And so we're going through it and we're watching it with him. We're explaining to him what we're doing, how we're preparing, like how all of it is going to be okay because we have a plan, like you're saying, right? Like having the plan. And so it's not just creating that plan as us as parents, but how do we involve our kids in that plan? Like if there's a fire, do they jump out their window? Do they feel the door? Like at school, they learn these things, but have we ever had these discussions with our kids on what would ever happen if there was an emergency at our house? If the house got broken into, what do you do? Like, do you jump out your window? Do you hide in your closet? What do you do? And so having these conversations with our kids, we think like we don't want to scare them, so we hold back and not have them, but we actually like, it gives them more comfort if they know what they should be doing in those situations, and then they feel confident about it. And so for anybody who has done a little bit of it, but you are realizing right now, like, oh yeah, I need to put that on the list. I need to do more. Like make it like set a time to like have a discussion like this with your family, or for somebody who's never even given any thought to this and you're like kind of overwhelmed right now and you're like, oh my gosh, where do I start? I have to like do all these things. Just take it one step at a time. Like just like start with like, if there was a shakeup in the schedule and somebody got sick and your kids need to be picked up from school by somebody else, start with that, you know, like just baby step it to like, what is our family plan if things get shaken up in our schedule and things get rearranged, you know, like just having those plans in place makes it feel like, oh, we got this. It's no big deal. So I love that phrase. If, you know, if you have no plan, you're planning to fail, because, you know, the same thing is like creating these processes. Like if you don't have an expectation for your kids for chore charts and what their responsibilities are in the house, they're just not going to do them because they don't know it's an expectation. Well, the same thing is like, if we have something in place for if things go haywire, you know, like we've had friends, you know, they have like a gas leak in their house, or they get like mold growth like up in the attic or something, and they got to move out for a little while it gets handled. Like these are just everyday things. It doesn't even have to be a giant disaster. It's just like, okay, like let's have those conversations with our kids now about what our plan is as a family. What's our family policy around this? Yeah, I love what you're doing. And I'm so glad you're sharing this kind of knowledge with a demographic that hasn't been served in this way. Like I grew up on a ranch. So just like you, like growing up in the country, you learn to be self-reliant in that way. But again, we didn't go camping either, even though like you're just like you're saying like we lived on this great property, you think we'd go camping all the time. Like we didn't go camping either. So camping is something I've had to learn in my adulthood, how to do all the camping things. And so I love learning along with my kids, and I love camping. But it's so funny, like you think if you grew up outside that you also know this other thing, but they're different. And so I just love that you're reaching this audience that has kind of been excluded from that conversation for so long.
Right.
So.
Yeah, Brenda, and I'd like to say, like you were talking about planning, you can also too, I have a checklist. I'll share it with all the gals if you like. And not just go through the checklist, but literally, like Scott, this is something that we're getting ready to do in the very near future. We're going to time ourselves. Pretend we're going to, okay, is this emergency? How long does it take us to get our totes or 72-hour kits, our planner, our grab and go bag? And then that checklist you were talking about, you put that, laminate that, put that into place, you know, to grab that. When we used to show cattle, we had a checklist. We made sure when we drove 7 miles or 7 hours to go show cattle, we had everything we needed, you know, and you need to do that. And you need to practice with your children. Like you just said, practice with your children once or twice a year. Pick something. Get your tent, even if you go outside, or hey, everybody, let's jump in the car, take your tent, take your stuff, wherever you're going, whether it's grandma's or wherever, and go practice. And if you do it 2, 3, 4 times, you get comfortable, they get comfortable, and you can make a game out of it. You can have family home eating nights. You can make a game out of doing this. That's what we use Sparky the Amazing Squirrel to teach all these different stories in a non-scary way too. So
I love that.
Yes, little kids too. So practice.
So what I'll do, Joan, is a couple of your resources that you're mentioning that you would like to share. I will be taking those and I'm going to be putting them in our membership portal. So the Kick-Ass Modern Moms Club, the portal, which is where all of these streaming things, you might be in the future right now watching this from that portal. And so I'm going to have some of these resources that Joan's going to share. But then where can they, you're on Instagram, you're on Facebook, and you mentioned you have some coaching programs. So where is, like you have your membership. So where can they find your stuff so they can get more of these resources directly from you in the future?
Okay, probably the best thing to do is YouTube channel, The Prepper Mom. There's a Prepper Mom too, The Prepper Mom. Go there. We're getting ready to start uploading a ton more videos and shorts and stuff. Or email me support@thepreppermom.com. That's for right now. That we also have Prepping for Life. I have a podcast that I'm getting ready to start, and we have the Prepper Ready system. So like you have your system, we have a system that's has 11 parts or the 3 Ps that teaches people. So probably the best place, and the preppermom.com. We're still working on that website. But that's going to have all the courses, how to reach us for the concierge program and everything. And feel free to reach out if you got a question. I mean, you know, I'll do a Zoom with you and I'll share the calculator. Brenda's seen a calculator, 5 minutes, man. You know what food store, what you need.
Yes. Oh, so good. The stuff you're putting together is so brilliant. And so now for everybody listening right now, Joan is building out all this stuff right now. If you're in the future and you're listening to this episode in the future, there's going to be a lot of this stuff that's already available. And so I'll make sure that we update in show notes and in any links that are attached to this. We'll make sure that we have it updated with all the things that Joan has already built out by then. And so yeah, for anybody who's interested in working with Joan, she is a wealth of knowledge. If you're kind of feeling like, okay, now you got my wheels turning, this is something that I want to give my energy and attention to, but I don't really understand it or know much about it, go talk to Joan, because she can just come in and set it all up for you. Like, she could just tell you everything you need to know. You don't have to spend a lot of time researching this, but like, she'll just do it for you. She'll like say, get this many bags, this many pounds, go to this website, order, you know, this is where you keep things, this is how you store it. She has all the information. So you don't have to be spinning your wheels, like stressing about, you know, I don't even know where to start with all this stuff. So she's such a valuable resource. So make sure you reach out to her. Yeah, wealth of knowledge, so much value that you provide. And I am so glad that you're sharing this with the moms of the world. And I'm so glad you came on to talk to us today. This was awesome. I always love talking to you, Joan. This is the best.
Mahalo.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We have so much in common, like our upbringing and stuff like that. And so I just feel at home whenever I talk to you. So I wish I had your accent. Like, I wish I had that North Carolina accent. It's the best. Well, is there anything else that you wanted to share before we wrap this up?
Just the only thing I can think of is I just felt so prompted this morning to just listen to that inner voice. Listen, I'm getting goosebumps all over my body. It's just It will guide and direct you guys. Who would have thought a little girl from North Carolina would have met her sweetheart in a hot pond all the way across the country in Idaho? It was a miracle. I'm serious. You listen to, and I mean, I have 4 awesome children, 4 awesome grandchildren. I mean, going from 2 divorces to 39 years of marriage. My mother-in-law, when I met her, I thought, oh gosh, in the South back then, if you were divorcee, you're trash, kind of. And I thought, oh Lord, I was scared to even tell her. I have loved this woman since the day I met her. She says, third time's a charm. So, just listen to that voice. It'll bring you the most happy. I'm not saying the journey's not going to have some bumps,
Right.
but those bumps, remember what about the diamond? They're going to help you. And your kids, if you feel inspired to go talk to Johnny or Sally or whatnot, and they need a little bit more help, listen to that. And I'm not kidding, rubbing their feet, touching your children in a holistic, loving mom way. They love that. My oldest son comes and he hugs me every once in a while. He needs that. Both my boys have PTSD, so they really need it. So, but yeah, we'd love to help you. Just reach out to us, do your thing, and be happy. That's my wish for you. And let me help you get your food storage so you live a long time. And when crap hits a fan, you're okay.
Yes. Awesome. Yeah, I did an
you.
infant massage class with my second when he was a tiny baby. And which then I immediately was like, oh my gosh, I should have done this with my firstborn. So I would come home and he was a challenging little baby and toddler. It's just so funny how like they go through little phases that like what you need to know. And so he was a little kid that like when he was on the inside, when I was pregnant, and I'd be trying to do exercises, and anytime there was a little bit of compression, he was like Pilates inside there, like stop. And as soon as he was born, he did not like to be touched or held or smothered or anything, right? Like, and so he was not a touchy baby. He liked having his space. Like you lay him in, he was like, a lot of people, they like swaddle their babies or they have them in the little chairs to help them sleep. He was the kid that like he wanted to be on the big crib mattress, open space, and he would fall asleep instantly in his crib. And so like no baby ever starts out in their crib right away. He started out in his crib. He was like, put me in my crib. I'm happy. I want my space around me. And so I did this infant massage class with him as a way to be like, okay, where does he like to be held? And how does he like to be touched? And, because as a mom, you're like, he was in the ergo carrier all the time, but he hated it. He fought it. Every time he'd go in there, he would fight it so much. And so I'm like, okay, how can I speak his language in this way? And so I went to this class and it was so good because I learned he loved right here. I would go around his eyebrows, right? And then he loved just like the ball of his foot, not anywhere else. There's certain little spots. And the massage therapist, she specialized in this. And so she was talking about the pathways and what that relates to both what's going on in their brain and what's going on in their heart. And so she was saying like for his personality, these pathways are how he connects. And so it's like, he was just, he's like this little engineering kid. And so it's like the engineering spots is what he needed. And so it's been so valuable because then I learned how to speak his language. And to this day, I tuck him in and I give him a kiss right here and I rub his forehead and he likes it. He doesn't want you to hug him. And so it's just, but then I would come home and I'm like, oh my gosh, I should have done this with my firstborn. So then I was like, talking to the therapist and she would give me pointers and I would come home and my daughter would love it when I would rub her back and like rub on her calves, like her shins and calves at bedtime. She would just fall right to sleep from this. It's like her magic button, And so it's one of those things where, like we think it's hugs or we think it's like combing their hair or whatever, right? Like the usual areas, but it's so valuable to get a little bit of education in it because sometimes it's like their shins or like my third child, he loves when I use just a little bit of fingernails. He calls it tickly fingernails. And he comes up and he pulls up his shirt and he wants me to do tickly fingernails on his back. And then he goes, okay, now over here. Okay, now here, so it's like, yeah, doing those kind of things. Like he loves those moments. Like that's such a special time for him is to have that. And so learning how to speak each of their languages, like what those little spots are on them. You mentioned it a couple of times, but we didn't really go into it. But that's where I was like, every time you would talk about it, I'm like, yeah, it's so true. So I just had to like share my
That's
experience with
awesome.
that. And for anybody who lives here locally in Tucson, I will tell you, I can refer you to the class that I went to, because she still does that kind of stuff. So she's
Mhm.
amazing. I should get her on here. I should interview her. She's so cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just think it's like all these different aspects of this. Yeah, if you were listening to any of these types of interviews and you start kind of hearing one of the moms mention things, and you get that little feeling, like, I know for me, like, when you get an adrenaline rush where all of a sudden your heart kind of pitter patters a little faster, that for me is like that feeling of like, oh, there's something there that I need to pay attention to. Like, this is a calling. So
Right.
when you get
Right.
those little feelings, the chicken skin, I like that, or the little pitter patters, I'm like, there's something that's calling me. Like, go with that. Find, like,
Mhm.
follow those curious clues, and it leads you to the thing you need to do. So I
Right.
love that so much.
Brings
Well,
you
thank
peace.
you. Thank you,
Oh,
Joan. Yes,
thank
this
you,
was
sweetheart.
wonderful.
Mm.
Yeah, I can't wait. Well, we're gonna have to come back and have another conversation next year. Because I can't wait to see all the things that you're putting in place. And so
Yeah,
we'll have
that's
to have you come
amazing.
back and tell us a little bit more about all the different programs you're doing, and some of the families that you're working with and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And yeah, give us an
that's
update
awesome. I'd
on all
love
that.
to. Love
Yes.
to. All right. Thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you so
Mahalo,
much.
ladies. Merry Christmas.
Yay.
Take
Merry
care.
Christmas, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.